Hey guys, what's up? This is Casey. We have some special guests here that are in another part of the country. I'll get to them in just a second. I just want to remind you that this is Shot Science Overtime number 144. And like we do every week where we meet on these Sunday shows, we have a topic that we talk about at the top of the show. And while we're doing that, you guys are going to be sending us your questions on all things basketball, whether that's shooting, passing, dribbling, defense, how to talk to your coach, how to work out in the off season, who to work out with, whatever it may be. You guys send us those questions and we'll do our best to answer them after we're done with our topic. So remember, this is our kind of longer form show. It's going to be about an hour long. And if this isn't your cup of tea, that's cool. We'll catch you on the next one. But you can go check out our several hundred tutorial videos on our YouTube library. So just go check those out. Okay, so let's get to our guest. One of them is here all the time, so you're probably not so shocked to see him, but that's Coach Tom. He's over there. Say hi.
How are you today, everyone?
And then we got Coach Chase. What's up?
Hey guys, what's going on?
So where are you guys?
We're in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And I'm here in California. So if you guys want to tell us where you're from in the chat, please go ahead and tell us because we always like to see that. So you guys picked the topic for today. Do you want to announce what it is?
Go ahead.
So the topic, we're kind of winding down on the season at this point. There's a lot of kind of playoff games at the end of the year, but most players are wrapped up by now. So we thought it'd be good to chat a little bit about setting your off-season program and kind of some of the key things to think about as you're going into that process, and maybe some different tactics about how to create a habit out of getting to the gym or wherever your workouts are going to take place.
Yeah, one of the things that we tend to do, probably out of tedium and other reasons, is the fact that when the season's over, we kind of relax and let things go for a while. And if you're really a committed player, what you want to do is maintain that same kind of practice motivation through the rest of the year. Sometimes you can be playing other sports, but that doesn't mean that you still can't work on your basketball game. And so one of the things that's really important is to have some vision or some view of what you're going to do in the off season to make you a better player for next year. One of the things that maybe you do, and I know some coaches will do this, they sit down with their players and they say, okay, these are the things that you got accomplished this year. These are some things that you need to work on to improve your game for next season. And so that gives you some guidelines of things to work on. Maybe it's ball skills, maybe it's shooting, maybe it's defense. There's a lot of different aspects that coaches working with you on a daily basis will pick up, and they'll give you that guideline to help you develop as a player. What would you recommend as maybe a starting point for that, Chase?
Yeah, and I think the three things that I'd always approach in an off-season program is so three words I like to highlight on that: periodization, and I'll explain what that means, focus, and habit. So those are kind of the three things that I like to highlight on. Periodization means that you're creating kind of a flow to your workouts. It's not just about going all out day one of the off season. I mean, you just beat your body up throughout the whole season. The first week should be pretty light. I mean, it should be pretty easy type of stuff, maybe even taking the entire first week off to rest and recuperate and, play some other sports. One of the things I used to play in the off season is sand volleyball. And that was always something fun, just different sport to be able to play and, work on conditioning other muscles that you haven't kind of stressed over that period of time. But periodization means that you increase intensity to kind of a high end point, and then you back off. And then you increase intensity again to a higher point and then back off. And that allows you to kind of build that skill set without overly fatiguing your body and kind of going through that overtraining syndrome. And then focus, pretty straightforward. That's a lot of the plan in mind. What are the things that you want to do to work on and really focus in on those? The last part of that kind of relates to it, which is the habit part of it. How do you create this pattern of making sure that you're getting this done and you're not 2 weeks later saying, I haven't worked out at all in the last 2 weeks. It's really about creating kind of mechanisms to make sure that you're getting that routine in.
Right. How would you recommend players to develop and work on their game when they're involved in other sports, say like baseball or track or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all just comes down to the habit side of it. So it's finding out how can you balance your other sport with working on some of these, individual skill sets. So maybe that this week you want to work on, ball handling and just making sure that you're focused in on that. And it's just really more about creating the habit of getting in just a little bit of time. There's tons of studies that show from a motor learning perspective that you learn much better by doing small blocks of increments over time than trying to spend all that time at once.
Right.
So that repetitive nature is really important. So it's all about creating that habit.
Give an example of maybe that, and maybe ball shooting. Just a little.
So doing 2-ball dribbling every day for the next 2 weeks and only doing it for 10 minutes versus spending, what would that be? 10 minutes times 140. So 2 hours and 20 minutes worth of ball handling all at once.
Yeah.
You're going to get much more out of that 10 minutes over a 2-week period of time. Extend that to the whole off season, but having the focus to really do that, I think, is the key part. And one of the key principles to forming habits is creating an implementation intention, which means that you write down exactly how you're going to go about achieving that. And so there's tons of studies around, these habit-based things that if you actually write down how you're going to go about doing it and you create a plan, you're much more likely to do it than if you just have this kind of goal or wish to do it. So it's really about how do you plan to implement that workout plan. That's a key thing.
Would you recommend that it be a written plan?
Absolutely. I think you have to write it down. I think one of the key things that you can do too is write out what your plan's going to be, and then I'd write a short sentence about how and why you're committing to that plan. So you write out I'm committing this plan because I want to be a better player, and whatever else you want to add to that because I want to get to X point, and then sign it. And I think that's a really important thing is, there's tons of brain kind of psychology around making that commitment that, it's much harder to break that than if you just, kind of whimsically decide that, yeah, I sure hope I do that by next year.
Yeah. How about the people? How about the people that they want to be a better fill in the blank position? Like they want to be a better point guard or they want to be a better post player. We talk about this almost every week about that kind of stuff because most people, when they ask how do they approach getting better at basketball, they always kind of preface it with a position that they want to play. And, Dad and I have kind of our opinions on it, but what is your opinion on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to become an similar. And my guess is that that's probably a lot of what your guys' response is. It's all similar. I'd vary just a little bit in saying there are some very specific skill sets that certain positions favor over others, meaning if you're a point guard, you're probably not going to do as much back to the basket, post up type of moves, although it is helpful to have those skill sets, but it may not be the best from a focus perspective. Right. So I think there are specific individual things that you can work on. If you're a post player, stepping outside and working on your 3-point shot does have some value, but it may not be where you're put into situations in the future. So I think there is some position-specific stuff. As a point guard, you should be working a ton on ball handling. It's not to say that you shouldn't as a center, but it's, there's maybe some other things too that could be, more focused with your time.
You bring up a thought to me as you're talking there, how oftentimes we get people who write in and give us questions, and one of them is this. My coach wants me to be to set up play, and I want to shoot threes. Okay, and so how do I resolve that issue with my coach? I want to be a 3-point shooter, and he wants me to take and be a mailman. He wants me to deliver the ball to everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy question to that is you just have to prove that you can shoot the three. I mean, I think any coach would be happy to have you shoot the three if you shot 80% from out there.
I'm kind of amazed because I keep running across coaches here and far that their players say, this is what my coach wants me to do. He doesn't want me to shoot the 3-ball. And maybe it's because he doesn't have confidence in you, but maybe it's just because he wants you to be the guide. He wants you to really move and make this whole thing create from the point guard position. Whereas I don't particularly buy that. If I've got somebody who can shoot it, I'm going to make sure that he gets shots,
Right. Okay. So I think a lot of people too, they want to know kind of how do these guys that are like the top level players, like how do they approach training? Because, there's a reason why they're at the top and they're not, kind of the guys that kind of fall back into the pack. So what are those guys doing that's different than everybody else in general?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's anything different that they're doing. I think they probably have some, creative drills that they come up with, and it's fun to highlight those. But really, it's more about having the plan and executing on it. It's about having that clear picture of, a Steph Curry or somebody like that is a really clear plan of what he's doing before the game to warm up. He does the same thing repetitively over and over again, but also mixes in new stuff that's kind of a challenge that he's not used to. But I guarantee the offseason regimen is, very well documented, bookleted out. He goes day to day to day to day on what's going to be the next thing. And if he's not personally doing that, he has somebody that's doing that for him. But, it's not that hard, I think, to put together some of those plans on what to do, and creating some of those templates for here's how I can put information into, what my workout plan is going to be. But really, it's just about getting in the habit of doing it and doing it. And those are the key things. And then, I think the most important one is game speed. Right? If you go out and you work at stuff half speed, you're not going to improve those skill sets. You really have to challenge yourself. And, it should be a frustrating hour or 2 hours, however long your workout is, because you're, losing the ball or you're missing shots. But the goal is to do it at game speed so that you're not performing well, because the challenge is to be able to execute at that level, not at half speed. So if you go out and go half speed and you make 9 out of 10 shots, who cares? If you go out full speed and you're making 3 or 4, you're doing a really good job.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that the similarities between just kind of a lazy casual practice and game speed is really different once you step on the court and you've got a defender in front of you who is trying to defend, take the ball away from, keep you from shooting. And so I really agree. In fact, Casey and I talk about that most every week, that game speed practice is probably as important as any other element of the game.
Yeah, I think for me, what I was getting at was definitely those things that you were talking about. But on top of that as well is just the fact that these great players, or the players that kind of cut away from the pack, those are the people that go in there and they have this very purposeful, diligent, consistent approach to their practice that a lot of times other people don't have, like, the mental focus or dedication to really pull off. And it's one of those things, like you were just talking about, is that, game speed practice is not the same as just casual shoot around practice. It's tough to go in there and force yourself to play at that intensity or practice at that intensity. But, if you want to execute at that level when you step into a game, you have to do that when you're in practice. So when people are going into practice, they have to have this approach that they are going to be very purposeful in everything that they do. So they're thinking about what they're doing. They're analyzing what they're doing. They're, if their shot's off, they're looking at why that's happening. If they're a step behind on defense, they're looking at why that's happening, and they're addressing those things. And while they're doing that, they're also being very diligent and making sure that they're kind of shoring up all the different things that are going on to make sure that they're being as efficient as possible, and that they're putting everything into each element of what they're practicing. And then the consistency on top of that is, if you want to be a great shooter, and we say this all the time, if you want to be a great shooter on Sunday, you have to be a great shooter on Monday, or you have to work on your shooting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You can't just put this huge emphasis on shooting in on Monday or Tuesday and then hope that it's there on Sunday. So it really comes down to having this approach to practice that has a point. It has a meaning. It's not just going through the motions.
Yeah, agreed on that one.
And those guys that kind of play at that higher level, they're putting in the time and they have the mental focus to pull that off. And you talk about players like Steph Curry or Kobe or Ray Allen or whoever, and you hear the stories about those guys. Even on game day, they're there 4 hours early doing shoot around for, a couple hours before the game even happens. And they've put up 1,000 shots before their game. Whereas a lot of players, they don't even put up 1,000 shots in a week, So it's one of those things that it kind of reveals your dedication, and you have to really kind of identify your goals and identify what you want to get done, and then put in the proper implementation with all those things that Chase has been talking about. And, it's almost like you have to really get down to business if you want to to be a great player?
Well, one of the things that come to my mind too is that if you are at the end of the season and you're projecting yourself to next season, there has to be a commitment and a plan for where you want to be in that next season. I want to be one of the best players on my team. I want to be the best player in the league. I want to be the best defender. And those kinds of things are really important, I think, to generate this focus for you as a player. Rather than just going out and shooting and a little bit of dribbling and a little bit of defense. It's a total commitment to reach that goal that you want. I can remember watching Chase when he was home from the summer vacation, out on the court, hour upon hour, just working hard on his game and at game speed, and for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that people a lot of times they feel like they're entitled to things. So maybe they feel like they put in the work or they've done their time or whatever, and they're not getting out of the game what they think they should. Like maybe they feel like they should have played more this last season, or maybe they didn't make the team and they thought they should have, and the coach is stupid. He doesn't know what he's doing or whatever. That's a poor approach to that as well. If you want to make the most of your off season, you have to make yourself undeniable so that when you show up at the next tryouts or you show up next year, there's no doubt about where you should be playing or how much you should be playing or whether you should be on the team. And if you are in a position where you're complaining about that kind of stuff, then you need to redirect that energy into motivating yourself instead of, these little pity parties that get you nowhere. And you can see players that take those situations and flip it to their positive and actually go somewhere with it. And then you see the ones that don't, and they just fizzle out. And you just have to always remember that nobody is going to help you. And if they do, that's a bonus. But you should never expect anybody to carry you through any of this stuff. Okay, should we wrap this up and get into some of these questions?
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so if you guys have any more questions about how to kind of get better in the off season or any of that, please just let us know in the comments, and we will do our best to get back to you and answer those questions. But right now, we're going to shut down that topic, and you guys have been sending us some questions in the chat, and if you have more, please send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer them. But this is your opportunity to ask coaches and former players exactly the questions that maybe have been on your mind and you don't know who to ask, and we're going to do our best to answer them, and we will shout you out. And this is also a great opportunity to remind you to tell us where you're from. I'm here in California, and the other two guys, they're out in Oklahoma, so we're kind of spread out across the United States today. But we want to know where you're from, and we love hearing that people are from around the world. That always gets us excited to know that stuff. So in the chat, tell us where you're from, and let's get into these first few questions. Okay, this is a shooting question. This one is from CrazyFast2351, and they ask, how do you add backspin to your shot?
That's an interesting question, and one that we address an awful lot. We'll recommend that you go to one of our videos about the rotation of the ball, but you don't want to add a lot of rotation to the basketball. One of the things that happens is that the faster the ball rotates, the more energy that's captured in the rotation of that basketball, and when it runs into the rim or backboard, it usually is going to be result in a longer rebound. And so we really teach everybody that we want to have a soft rotation, and we create that just with a real soft follow through. Jason and I went to a high school game last night, a playoff game here in Oklahoma, and there was a young fellow that had just the softest wrist when he came through, and the ball spun just really softly. When it hit the backboard or hit the rim, it would bounce up maybe a foot or two. And so we're not big on a lot of rotation. And yet I know coaches around the country and maybe around the world feel that you need to snap that wrist so you get more rotation. But that in itself kind of brings me back, and I'm not going to get into this because I don't know enough about it, is that magnum effect that we've talked about a number of times. And I just think that a softer rotation is better.
It's Magnus effect.
Magnus. I thought it was Magnum. Okay. Okay.
Well, here's the thing too, is that you're right. People try to put too much energy into the ball when they flick their wrist or snap their wrist, and that energy, it has to go somewhere once the ball hits the target. And so if it hits the target or the rim or whatever, in that scenario, you want it to swish and go right through the net. But a lot of times you're going to hit the rim or the backboard, and when the ball has that much energy tied up in it with the spin, it expends it as soon as it hits that hard surface. And if you want to keep the ball sticky and make it have fingers right there around the rim, then you're gonna want to have a nice, soft, gentle backspin, so that when it hits, it just kind of plods and it just sticks kind of right in that spot, and it gives it a second chance to go in. You don't want it to hit the rim and shoot up 8 feet in the air and then hope that it falls back through. Like that's a kind of like the odds of that happening are not great. So like you were saying, that gentle backspin is what you get when you have that nice flop finish that we always talk about, and that's going to keep the ball sticky around the rim.
I was reading last couple of days this study that was done by a guy on rotation, and one of the things that he recommended was the fact that the ball should not rotate more than 2 complete rotations every second of the shot. Well, if you shoot a free throw, it usually is about 1.5 to 2 seconds, and so that gives you some sense of what they're recommending as far as the rotation of the basketball is concerned. And if you look at the nice arc, you're going to find the ball fast at all. You watch Thompson or even Korver, when those guys release the basketball, it is soft, it's spinning slow, and it's got a lot of arc.
Right. Okay. So let's get another question here. This one is from Nathan Toa, and he says, "Hi, I have good basketball skills in terms of shooting and dribbling, but my fitness limits my performance. Can I be unfit and still be a good player, or should I just get fit?"
Get fit. Get fit. That's the answer you need.
Well, that all comes back to being like a well-balanced, versatile player. I mean, if you have these limitations or weaknesses, those are things that are exploitable, and they're going to be your limitations when you step out on the court, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of drills you can do in the off season to really focus in on fitness too. I mean, for me, it was never really a great idea to just go out and run sprints, because running long distance stuff doesn't really help you from a fitness perspective that much in basketball. It's much more about the specificity to the thing that you're doing. So if I go out and run marathons, it doesn't help in basketball, because basketball is very much sprint and quick movement oriented. But you can go out and you can do, catch the ball, sprint to the other end, shoot a jump shot, get the rebound, sprint back out to the other side, get a jump shot, and mix up some drills like that where you're sprinting up and down the court and almost running, suicide type runs. But, the goal is to add in dribbling and shooting and things like that into it, so you can continue to work on those while you're improving your fitness.
Well, not only is it improving your fitness, but the other thing is that you also learn to deal with fatigue. And that's an important part of this game too. The basketball is such a high intensity sport. The games we watched last night, it was a sprint from one end to the other the whole game. And so the fatigue factor is a very important part of just that conditioning or getting more fit.
Yeah, and I think one more thing to add to that real quick is that, to say that you're, a good ball handler and shooter, but you don't have good fitness, it tells me you're probably not going game speed when you're practicing those things. Because if you were, you'd really be challenging it to a further extent, and your fitness would improve along with that. Because going game speed is not easy. I mean, you can only get in 10 reps or so, and then you're fatigued. You got to shoot a couple free throws, and get back to it. But you can kind of gauge where your fitness is based on how many reps you can get in before you feel that fatigue point.
Right. And I mean, you're basically talking about turning kind of practice into kind of functional training, where you're integrating the conditioning and interval training and things like that all into one package. So
yeah, I think game speed, you almost do that by itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's playing at the level and intensity of the game. So that is definitely a good approach. But there's also some other resources that people can check out too, in terms of kind of developing their fitness and athleticism and stuff. And one of those is Chase's videos on developing your vertical jump. And so if you go look at our vertical jump videos on our channel, there's a whole bunch of exercises and drills and things that Chase goes through that are kind of there. He picked them out specifically for vertical jump, but they all apply to general athleticism and conditioning as well. So you can go check those out. Check out the vertical jump handbook that we have also. And you can also go check out some of our friends, our buddies, videos from Alan Stein and Coach Drew Hanlon, and they have some really good stuff on conditioning and stuff that we stand behind as well. Okay, so let's get another one here. Actually, here's a bunch of people, and they're telling us where they're from. We'll just do a little handful of them, but let's see. Gafar Plays says he's from Ontario. Freddie Rodriguez from the Dominican Republic. Hunter Weatherby's from Oregon. Ta Feck the Man is from Toronto. A.K. Lowry from South Carolina. Nathan Toa is from New Zealand. He's from Auckland in New Zealand. Henrique Miranda is from Portugal. Hudaifa Waberi is from Denmark. And Cadmiel McForster's from the UK. And there's a whole bunch of other people too. So it's cool that we got people from all over the place watching today.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yes. So you guys, if you haven't told us where you're from, please just let us know. We like to see it. Okay, here is one from NBA Beast who says, how can I increase my range? I have a one motion shot. I think, okay, let me just say the one motion shot and the two motion shot, we talked about it last week. What we say is that you want to have the most efficient shooting mechanics that you possibly can. And when we think about one motion and two motion shot, the two motion shot makes us have kind of the red flag pop up about having those sticking points where you lose kind of the power or momentum of your shooting. So we like the fluid, connected mechanics that are very, very efficient. And you'll see those in people like Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. But everything is all one fluid motion from your feet to follow through. Having said that, how do you increase your range?
Well, there's several things that are involved with range. Number one is you have to learn how to get the power for a particular distance. Let's say you're shooting from 12 feet and you get the power fixed for that through practice. I'm with Casey on the one motion shot. We teach kind of a one motion shooting for power and whatnot. But the thing that's really important is that then you move back maybe another 3 feet and you work on the power there, and move back a little further and work on the power there, and learn how to get the legs into the shot. One of the things that we don't really think about enough is that some people will say, well, I get my power from my shoulders and arms. Well, you probably do, but not very much, because those are not really very large muscles for most of us, unless you're, like LeBron James, and he's got this huge upper body. But the point is that our largest muscles in the body are those that are from our midsection down. That's where the power sits. And so you need to learn how to execute the power from those places to make you have more range. And what happens is that we tend to move away from the basket a little bit. We have a little bit more of a tendency to rack the shoulders to get more power. And when we do that, your accuracy tends to just fall off the table, because the ball is going to the right or it's going to the left. And oftentimes you get the other hand involved there as well. And that's going to the shot to it. You'll find that that's going to really help you for not only distance, but also probably for accuracy.
Yeah, I think we have some great exercises too in the vertical jump handbook and some of the other videos that we have on, strength training based stuff. I mean, there's so much it's not always even about strength. Sometimes it's about flexibility and creating some of those things too. A lot of times people are just so bound up in those muscles that you don't get all of the muscle use out of it. That's why one of the things I really advocate and wish I had done more of as an athlete, not knowing a lot of this stuff before then, is foam rolling, because it's so important to get those muscles to release so you can actually use all of the muscle body versus just certain elements of it, because we get these adhesions in the muscle where they stick, and now we're using less of that muscle capacity. Now we're only using 30, 40, 50% of that muscle versus getting on the foam roller, loosening those muscles up, you get much more kind of utilization of the muscle fibers that are in there, and you can get a larger percentage. I mean, if you think about getting 10, 15, 20% more efficiency out of the muscle, there's your range right there, just from that element of foam rolling and warm up.
Chase, take a moment, if you would, and just kind of talk about stretching and foam rolling for a little more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. The way that your muscles function for the most part are based on a spring effect. Especially in these type of movements. If you're doing a bicep curl or something like that, there's not a spring effect unless you get to the eccentric point, which is the downward motion. There's going to be some bounce back up as you hit the length of the muscle. So you're doing the same thing in shooting. You're stretching those muscles to then recoil them to create the power out of it. And so when your muscles aren't allowed to stretch to that extent, or they have some kind of roadblocks in that with adhesions in the muscle, you're going to have less of that spring and rebound effect.
Okay, just explain so they understand what the adhesions really are.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get to that much detail of it, but I think, essentially an adhesion is when, the muscle for some reasons, fatigue or dehydration, which is a huge part of it, becomes sticky. So you don't get that stretch to the muscle, yet other areas of the muscle are able to stretch out. So stretching is not going to fix that. That's why we advocate foam rolling, because it can get blood flow to the area and help loosen those muscles up.
Yeah, and if people want to go check out more information on that stuff, all they have to do is go check out the vertical jump videos, and we talk about all that stuff and how to foam roll and how important all that stuff is. So yes. And I also want to say too about increasing your range. One of the things that we always talk about as well is the fact that you have to work progressively back. It's not something where you can shoot those 2 foot, 3 foot shots and then suddenly step back to 23 feet and all of a sudden the ball is going to go in just the same as how you were shooting at 2 feet. What you have to do is use something like the form shooting drill and progressively work yourself back, where you start in close, you master those close in spots, take a step back, master that, take a step back, master that, because as you do that, you will be kind of innervating your muscles and making sure that you are conserving all of the mechanics that you have close in, and they'll be there when you get farther back. And like you were saying, you don't have to rack your shoulders or do any kind of weird ancillary movements to kind of get more power. Like you've put the work in to actually have your power there with the proper mechanics as well. Okay. Let's see. We have Isaac here who says he's from Iceland. That's crazy.
All right.
And Abraham is from Florida. Cool. Okay, here's another question. Let's see. Fuddy AF says, how to impress the coaches next year because I didn't make my 7th and 8th grade team. And okay, I will just start by saying that we have a video on this where we talk about how to make the team. And that has kind of like our major teaching and talking points on how to impress coaches. But the main thing is, number one, make your skills undeniable, and you're going to have to put all your work into doing that right now. And then do the things that we talk about in that video that are kind of, they aren't necessarily things that you have to spend a ton of time developing, but it's kind of like a different mental approach and kind of personal approach that you have that kind of catches coaches' attention, right?
Oh, yep. Well, we also have the same video from Casey from the Warriors too.
Coach Casey Hill, yep. Okay, so go check out those videos on how to make the team, or how I think they might be something about tryouts as well. How to do well in tryouts. Okay, this one is from Calvin Moeller, who says, "What should I do if my elbow sticks out during my jump shot when I shoot with my right hand?" He's identified the problem. So
the problem with the elbow out is that creates a flat shot. And come with the flat shot, what we have is a smaller target of the basket. If you take and go to our videos on, I can't remember the name of that video, Casey, where we talk about the arc. Get Perfect Arc is what it's called, I believe. And if you don't have that the really big arc, what happens is that the basket gets smaller in diameter. It really doesn't get smaller, but the angle of attack makes it so that the basket might be as little as 9.5 or 10 inches. whereas normally it's 18 inches. But if you have more arc on it, what happens is that that basket begins to open up and you're shooting at a bigger target.
I think he was asking too, how do you get the elbow back underneath?
Oh, how to get the ball? That is all just focus on your part. You have to take and work on getting the elbow in. And if this elbow out is something that you normally do all the time, it's not going to be easy to do. We recommend that you go to our form shooting drill, and that's where you really work on that elbow in. We always tell our players too, our students, that the elbow of the shooting hand should be pointed toward your shooting toe. And that way you get that elbow down where it needs to be, and you can elevate and create arc. If the elbow begins to slide out, your hand turns and the ball is going to be flat, and typically it will come off these last 3 fingers. If it comes off the last 3 fingers, usually your accuracy is not very good.
Well, I think one of the things too that a lot of times players kind of misperceive on this is they try to force their hand behind the ball, which forces the elbow to rotate out versus looking at the yoke of the hand. So when I'm teaching shooting, I usually try to teach that that's where we're kind of looking for when we go to shoot, so that you come through, your elbow is underneath it, not forcing the hand behind the ball that creates that elbow out.
True.
Yeah, when you do that too, and you force that hand behind, you can feel the tension that just builds up here in your forearm. And you don't want that, because that tension is really going to affect your shooting release. You want to be relaxed. So having that yoke, instead of forcing it back, the yoke is just kind of this Y shape that we see here instead of here. So as you go up, that your hand will turn over anyways. So that's always good. And it's also ergonomic too. When you have that slight stagger towards your shooting side and you have the yoke there, everything lines up and feels good. If you're trying to go completely squared up and you're trying to get that hand behind, you can feel the tension, and that's why your elbows kind of wants to go out. So I would say, and I know everybody else would say, that you have to spend time in the first pillar of practice working on your form shooting and the form shooting drill, and be conscious of that stuff. And you'll quickly kind of get away from shooting that way if you spend some time and consistent practice on it. Okay, let's lightning round this a little bit, because we have a bunch of questions that we got to get through. Okay, let's see. People are asking about the Lakers and the Warriors game that's going on right now, and if we're watching it. Obviously, we're not. We would like to be, but we want to be here to help you guys for right now. But we're going to catch it after we're done here.
We do have it in the other room.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice. Full attention is of course, on the Shot Science.
We can't see it from here, but we were watching it before it.
Yeah, we'll get back to it. So we're not going to answer any questions about what's going on with the Warriors right now. Apparently, they're getting beat, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
Okay, there's a couple of questions here from Amir Dave, who says a few comments about how can they impress their new coach, and that they feel like they kind of got cheated out of last year's team and didn't make the team and stuff like that. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but I would again say go check out our videos on how to make the team. And I would also say change your attitude a little bit about being slighted and feeling like some coach shut you down or whatever. It's like you don't really have any control of that, and it's already happened. How about you spend your time in that positive space where you are motivating yourself to be a better player and putting all of your effort into being an undeniable guy, so that when you step out on the court next year at tryouts, they want you on the team, and they see that you have this positive attitude that's going to be positive for the team. That's going to make them want you way more than if you're going to be bummed out and entitled the whole time.
Well, and I think part of it too, going back to what we talked about with the habit forming and creating a plan. Like, one of the things you can do now is reach out to the coach who's going to be your coach next year and just say, hey, I didn't make the team last year, but I'm dedicated to putting the work in the next 6 months to make the team next year. Just wanted to introduce myself, and is there anything that you would suggest on things that I should be working on in the next year? Or whatever that conversation is. But a lot of times it's just creating that connection. You're going to create a positive association with that coach coming into tryouts, and coaches are human. I mean, there's going to be some biases like that where you're going to have a better advantage having reached out and made that connection than them not knowing you at all.
Well, I think that's absolutely true, because oftentimes coaches form impressions of players on how they present themselves, maybe how they play too, but how they present themselves. And, coaches, like Jay said, are human. And I think one of the best things you can do when there's something that is really bothering you about what's going on, connect with the coach, and not in a threatening way, but, coach, this is what I'm feeling, and I'm wondering, what's going on, and if you can help me kind of get over this. Don't be afraid to do that. But when you go to talk to a coach, you don't approach him and say, I'm better than that guy, and I don't know why you took him on the team and not me. That's not a good way to make that approach. Anyway, good luck to you. We hope you get it done next year.
Yeah, we're killing the lightning round right now too. I would also say too, like Chase was saying, one of the things that really can be a bad approach is to step out on the tryout floor, and that's the first time the coach is ever seeing you, because you don't know if that's going to be the day that you're going to play great or you're going to be doing well. And so, the coach doesn't know anything about you other than what they see that day. And so maybe you're not doing well, you're getting frustrated or whatever. That coach is going to see that, and that's going to be kind of their impression of you. But if you spent the 6 months before showing up, working on your skills at open gyms and playing in front of them and all that, I think a lot of times coaches already know who they're going to take when they show up to tryouts. And maybe there's a wild card that shows up out of nowhere, but that doesn't really happen all that often. So definitely a good approach to kind of be the bug in their ear early on. Okay, let's see here. We have a couple people that are asking, like Gafar Plays is asking how to block a shot. Somebody up here was asking, how do I time a shot or block? That's from Jarice Hoffman. I would say you guys need to go check out our video on how to block shots, because we show you and demonstrate to you how to do all that stuff. For us to sit here and tell you every element of how to block shots, it would take as long as that video takes. So go check that out, and we talk about that. Okay, this is from the Pinar Project, who says, how do I score more consistently in games?
You want to take that one?
I think that's a tough one. I mean, I think there's a really lengthy answer to that, but from a lightning round response to that, it's just continuing to have the confidence in it. It means you miss a few shots, you don't pull the horns back in and wait till the next game. It's if you have an open shot, it doesn't matter if you're 0 for 10 or 10 for 10 before that. You line it up and you shoot the same shot that you would before. And there's very small margin of, if you're 0 for 10, maybe you slightly think towards taking that ball to the basket to try to get fouled, build some rhythm by getting a free throw. But for the most part, the shots that you take should not be driven by makes and misses previously.
Yeah, that's really the truth. And then spending a ton of time getting better and at game speed, like we talked about earlier in this program. Game speed, practice, and shooting, all aspects of basketball are so important.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, is that a lot of that comes down to actually feeling like you've been there before. If you're just casually going through practices and you show up in a game, those skills that you're going to be calling upon are not going to be there, and you're going to really choke. So you have to practice like you play. And that's kind of the best approach to being consistent. Also means you have to practice consistently as well. And we mentioned earlier, if you want your shot to be there on Sunday, you have to consistently address and practice that shot every day of the week before that, not just hit it on Monday and expect it to be there on Sunday. Yeah. Okay, lightning round. Let's go. This one is from Gafar Plays, who asks, how do I have confidence?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Confidence usually is a result, or lack of confidence, I'll say, is usually the result of not having very good skill. And you need to take and build your skill level. You need to also take and work on that whole thing on game speed. And that's when you begin to get better. And as you get better, your confidence will begin to increase as well.
Right. Okay. Let's see. And I will also say, lightning round. I gotta chill out here. This one is from. We actually have a couple of people that are asking about injuries. Like Abraham Beltran is asking how to recover from an injured rotator cuff, and Nick is asking how to recover from sprained ankle. I will just preface this by saying we are not doctors. We are not medical professionals. So if you are injured and you're trying to figure out how to come back from that, you need to talk to your doctor and, you know, a physical therapist or something like that. But other than that, I mean, if you guys have anything you want to add on that, I just, it's not really our place to tell you how to come back from that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I deal with a lot of athletes who are going through injuries, and I, would agree on the fact of the medical opinion, and it's hard to give any kind of advice in that broad generality. But, from the standpoint of sprained ankles and things like that, it's really about getting blood flow back to the area. So working on small movements like, point and flex of your toe is really going to be helpful. There's a lot of debate over ice and how useful ice is, especially in kind of the, reduction in inflammation. From a rotator cuff perspective, usually rotator cuff issues all come down to poor kind of mobility. So you really have to work on squeezing those shoulder blades together, getting those kind of muscles that connect the shoulder blade, the scapula to the spine. You really have to work on that movement, because a lot of times it's being so hunched over from sitting that create those rotator cuff type of issues. And the problem with rotator cuff issues, a lot of times that turns into low back issues, because you're so kind of non-mobile there. You rotate so much at the spine to kind of compensate for that. So I'd say there's lots of important things to focus in on improving from those injuries.
Cool. Okay, this one is from Mo Anas Hussein, who says, how can I have a floppy wrist like many of the NBA players when they shoot?
That's just a matter of practice. And usually when we're working with shooters, we will tell them that you cannot get that relaxed follow through probably for the first 3 or 4 weeks, and you have to constantly work on it. Once you get it, you'll love it and you never leave it. But it takes a while for just the motor repetition on the thing. It takes a long time for you to get that to where it's going to work for you.
Yeah, I'll also say too, like, if you guys have to remember that tension is what kills that flop. So if you're trying to force your hand behind the ball, like we were talking about earlier, you're going to feel that tension, and it's not going to relax your hand to have the nice release. So you have to really work on getting rid of all those points of tension in your shot. And you can do that by having that slight stagger towards your shooting side, having the nice ergonomic yoke approach to shooting, and then also making sure that when you're going up into your shot that you've worked on it using the form shooting drill real close in, and you are working on making sure that that release is a nice floppy release. You're not pointing fingers, you're not dropping anything down. When you start pointing fingers, that's tension. I can feel it all through my arm when I do that. You want to make sure that it's a nice flop over your wrist, and it's completely relaxed. Right?
For me, for me playing, it was always trying to get that tension brought down, right? So it's really about practicing going all out as fast as you can go, 100%, and then almost slowing time down once you leave the ground for a jump shot or whatever else it is. You try to really just, release that tension. You try to get your jaw to just be really relaxed, a face numb type of feeling where the time is just slowing down. And then just try to be as soft as you can with that release. But it's all about mentally trying to just slow everything down as you get to that shot point.
Yeah, and we obviously don't agree with the idea of snapping the wrists. And we talked about why.
Before, yeah. Okay, this is from Daquan Tanny, who says, what is the key to good timing on a one motion shot? Also, what are some factors that determine a quick fluid shot? Well, here's the thing. The key to good timing on a one motion shot is, number one, you have to put in the practice and the work to really get that down. And learning to connect all the moving parts is really the first part of putting together all those pieces. And you have to do it in a controlled setting at a slow pace that is probably super boring at the very beginning, but you have to really work to put all those pieces together. You can't go full speed and expect all of those parts to just connect right away. So you have to use the form shooting drill. You have to really work on starting your shot down in your feet, where your feet flex up into your shot, and connecting all the parts as you rise up into your shot. If you have any sticking points or any points where the power supply is going to stop, then you have to work to eliminate those things. And what we always talk about is having the most efficient shooting mechanics you possibly can. So if there's any part of it that can just be eliminated and you still have the good foundational elements in place, then you need to eliminate that, because that's how you keep everything consistent, and that's how you are able to repeat that motion every time you go up into your shot. So the timing thing is really slowing everything down, putting the pieces together, and then speeding it up as you work towards game speed, right?
Yep.
And then making it fluid, that's all about connecting all the parts. Okay, this one is from Richmond De Los Reyes, who says, is it okay to practice every day?
We would hope you would.
Yeah, that's the important part about consistent approach to practice.
Yeah.
You know, it'll consistently be there for you when you get into the game. Let's see. The best wrestler WWE rules says, how do you get confident before a game?
What did you do in game preparation just for the mental part of it?
I mean, I don't know if there's anything that's going to solve that other than just the kind of skill set to it and entering it with the confidence you've built and being successful in games leading up to that. I mean, there's a lot to mental preparation where you're envisioning yourself in that game and being successful in the game, and, you know, taking yourself through hitting the shots and, you know, imagining the score being 63-60. You know, you guys are down by 3 and you come off and catch a wide open look and you knock the 3 down and tie the game up to go into overtime. I mean, those type of mental walkthroughs are a lot of times helpful to kind of make you feel like you've done it before. And that was one of the big things from kind of developing confidence, is feeling like this isn't new. This is something that you've done and kind of practiced over and over again. And a lot of my practice sessions when I was working on skills would be centered around some of those activities too, where it's not just sitting and thinking about that when you're not playing, but also setting up your drills to where, you know, you got to come off and hit that shot in order to tie the game up with no time left. And a lot of times it's just that repetition that when you put it back into a game in a real scenario, you've already been there and done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of people on here asking about confidence and how to develop it and where to get it from. A lot of times, you know, or not a lot, this is how you have it. And it's just what Chase was saying, is that you have to have confidence in your skills to have confidence in your execution. And so you have to really work on that stuff in the off season, and you have to get it to the point where you feel like it's going to be there no matter when you step out onto the floor. If you get out onto the floor and you feel like, oh, my shot's not where it needs to be, or am I going to be able to take care of the ball, or am I going to be able to play defense against this guy, that's going to really tear away your confidence. But if you step out there and you feel good, okay, I can make a shot, I can bring the ball up the court, I can play defense on this guy, like that's having confidence right off the bat. But if you don't feel like you have confidence in your skills, that's going to be a problem. So that's just another reason to get in there and really work on things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's a few people here asking about how do you get or improve your basketball IQ. I mean, that's really easy. That comes down to being a student of the game, and you have to watch basketball, you have to play a ton, you have to get the experience, and you have to have an analytical approach to all that stuff. There is no book you can read. There is no pill you can take. It is something that you just have to kind of get the experience of playing and watching and talking to people about it too, I guess.
Yeah, asking questions is a big one.
Yeah, really true. Really true.
And, you know, here's a few questions like this one from Lisa Brown, who was asking, what do freshman coaches look for? I just made 8th grade. I mean, there was a few questions before that were asking similar things. Coaches are looking for a lot of different things in their players. Obviously, number one is probably their skills and their abilities on the court. But there are these kind of intangible things that coaches are looking for all the time. And that's positive attitude, hustle, effort, initiative, leadership skills, having positive approach to teammates and things like that. Things that make the coach's job easier are things that are going to get a player on the team, right?
Right.
Okay, let's see. Christian Murray is asking how to play and score on bigger defenders in the post.
Well, one of the things that I think is important is that you take a look at the post skills that we have on our YouTube videos, and they will help you and be able to do that. You know, you don't have to be huge to be able to beat bigger guys. When I'm talking to a post player who is like, we had one about 6'2", about 3 or 4 years ago, and we gave him 3 or 4 moves that he could use effectively. And by the time he was a senior, we started on as a freshman. By the time he was a senior, and we got into the playoffs, he took a 6'7" guy and put 27 points on him because the other guy could not stay up with him. He was quick, he had good skills, he was explosive, and yet the other guy had 5 inches on him, and plus the reach they had. So a lot of it has to do with developing some skills where you actually are going to move. If you take and get the ball, turn around, and shoot, he's going to stuff it on you. But as soon as you make him move his feet, if he's quite a bit bigger than you, he's probably not going to be as quick as you are. So you want to use that quickness to your advantage in the execution of moves around the basket. Go look at our post moves, and you'll find some things there I think probably be very useful for you.
Yeah, here's a question from Cadmiel McForrester, who says, I want to play for the team next season, but I have little game experience. What should I do? Well, I mean, I think that everybody here is going to have an opinion on that, but the major thing that you have to do is you have to get the experience, and that's going to be getting out there and playing, whether that's on a traveling team or a club team or going and playing at the playground or organizing some buddies to play with or going to open gyms. That falls into the category of two initialisms that we always talk about: MIH, make it happen, and FIO, figure it out. And those are kind of terse ways to say that nobody can help you better than you can help yourself. And so you have to be creative in figuring out places to play, people to play against, and opportunities that are going to help you the best, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We wish we could just say, here, call this number or go to this location on Google Maps. But we don't have we don't know you. We don't know the specifics of where you live. You have to really figure it out, it's a good lesson to learn, and it'll make you a better player. Okay, 2 more questions and we're out of here. Cool. Okay, let's see. This one is from G Davis, who says, or Davis, who says, I have weak ball handling, and I tried some drills to improve, but they don't work really well for me. What can I do?
You go to our videos and check out the different drills and the things that we focus on. One of the things that usually happens with younger players, and I don't know how old you are, but they tend to not dribble the ball hard enough with enough authority and power. And so we really talk to players about pounding the basketball. You really want that thing to respond. It's harder for people to get their hands on it, and it tends to stick in your hand a little better when it's coming up a little harder. The other thing is that oftentimes if we're changing direction, we change direction with the ball too high. It maybe comes from hip to hip, and it's easy for people to step in and take it away from you or tap it away from you. Anytime you're changing that ball from one side to the other of your body, keep it low and quick. Those are just a couple of thoughts, but go to see our videos on those.
2-ball dribbling.
2-ball dribbling helps a ton.
Yeah, you have to also remember that if you start doing anything new, it's going to feel awkward and weird right off the bat. You have to stick with it and really slow everything down and get the feel of it, and then start to work it up, and you'll feel much better about it. If you want to get better, you have to kind of have that stick-to-itiveness to make it happen. But if you kind of bail on it early, of course, it's not going to work out for you. Okay. Last question is from Emily Wolf, who says, is it bad to practice too much? I practice 13 hours a week, and sometimes at games, I don't perform my best because I'm too sore. How can I fix that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say foam rolling is probably a big need there. I mean, 13 hours a week, it doesn't seem like an overabundant amount. It seems like a good amount. I mean, that's a good time commitment. But I would, focus in on doing some foam rolling, making sure you're hydrated, drinking enough water, and getting enough sleep at night. And doesn't seem like an overabundant amount of time to be practicing. But if you have a game coming up, maybe you go a little bit lighter and aren't pushing as hard, shorten your session. Instead of going for 2 hours a day, maybe do 2 30-minute sessions a day that you're going hard for that period of time and then stopping. But I'd say adding foam rolling will make a huge difference to just recovery and fatigue. Foam rolling and making sure you're hydrated.
And also maybe like the gear that you're using, like maybe her shoes aren't so great. I don't know where she's sore, but maybe making sure that you're using or that you're wearing shoes that aren't worn out, stuff like that, I guess.
And really, has it been repetitive? Is this just 1 week that you did 13 hours and played a bunch of games? Of course, you're going to be sore. If you've been doing it for 6 to 8 weeks straight, then there shouldn't be that soreness anymore over that period of time. Right. But yeah, I would say foam rolling, water, those are huge things. Gatorade, other drinks like that, sports drinks, they are not hydrating drinks. Water is a hydrating drink.
Cool. Okay, so I think we're going to shut it down right there. I want to thank everybody for all their questions. If we didn't get to your question, it's not because we don't like you. It's because we just ran out of time. I will also say that I've looked through a bunch of them right here at the end, and I will tell you that a lot of these questions can be answered by the videos that we have up on our channel. So if you just go to our Shot Science YouTube channel and you type in one of those keywords, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff that pops up that will probably answer your question. And we would definitely love for you to check that out. Also, if you want to talk to us during the week, we are around all the time, and you can follow us on all the social media platforms that your heart could desire. We are on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, anything. We are Shot Science. So if you just go and do a search for Shot Science on any of those places, you'll find us. We're doing different stuff on all those different places. And we will hopefully be back next week for a live show at 1 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday. You guys have anything else you want to add?
No, just thanks for listening to us, and hope we can offer you something that was useful. See you guys later.
Let's go watch that Warriors game.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Thanks so much. See you later.